Hi, welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you're a current subscriber. Today I'm analyzing the body language of Gypsy Rose during the Dee Dee Blanchard trial. Let's get into it.
Where were you born?
Bracebridge, Louisiana.
Where were you living in the summer of 2015, in June of 2015?
Springfield, Missouri.
Do you remember the address?
We're seeing some vertical lines here and a bit of a droop, especially in that right eyebrow. That is the palpable fissures, and that is generally giving a tonality of negativity, which makes sense in this context there in a court setting. But you see that droop there, especially in that left eyebrow. You don't see grief muscles, no creases in the forehead. They haven't really got into the swing of things in this trial so far, of course. You're not seeing a lot in the way of anxiety. Her blink rate's a tad bit high, but not high enough that I feel that it is an indication of stress. She just seems focused. Now she has that right ear turned towards and actively open to what's being asked of her. So she is taking an interest and again focused on what's being said.
I don't remember now. I'm sorry.
How long had you lived at that address in Springfield?
About 7 years.
And prior to that, where did you live?
Slidell, Louisiana.
And when did you move to Missouri?
In 2005.
And who did you move to Missouri with?
My mother.
And what was her name?
Now she takes a deep breath, which says in 2005 in her head is to the side there. She is continuing interest. There's an eyebrow flash when she says about 7 years. She places emphasis and importance on that number.
Claudina Blanchard.
Did she go by any other names?
Dee Dee.
So if I say Dee Dee, you'll know who I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Do you know a Nicholas Godejohn?
Yes, sir.
Now we saw an adapter there, her pulling on her shirt, trying to bring comfort to herself, just get a little more comfortable where she's at. Not a lot of other indications of anxiety, however, so there is some terseness around her mouth. She seems to want to say something, to be holding something back. Again, this is all just negative tonality. It's also interesting she's wearing gray. It's bleak, just adding further to the negative tonality of this entire situation. And again, it's a courtroom. It's about a trial of someone being unalived, so all of that makes sense in this context.
And when did you meet Nicholas Godejohn?
In October of 2012.
How did you meet him?
On an online Christian dating website.
Do you remember the name of that site?
ChristianDatingForFree.com.
How old were you when you met Nick?
About 21.
In June of 2015, what did you consider your relationship to Nick to be? What kind of relationship?
We were boyfriend-girlfriend.
And when did you become boyfriend and girlfriend?
There's an emphasis around boyfriend-girlfriend. She does confirm other things with that head nod there, so all of this makes sense. A few signs here and there of potential contempt, especially around Nick. No indications of contempt around Dee Dee, however, so far. I will also say that I'm not seeing any signs of trauma, and I should have noted this in the other videos, but no signs of any kind of eye trauma or head trauma that I feel that she would have had, given either genetics, aging, if Dee Dee had actually hit her, or if she'd actually had eye surgery, anything like that. Now, that's not always a guarantee, of course. Not everyone starts to have droopy eyelids based on that or any indications in the face of trauma, but usually that would mature you a bit. There would be indications of some stress in the face, especially in the palpable fissures.
In October 2012.
When did you first meet Nick in person?
March of 2015.
So between October of 2012 and March of 2015, you hadn't actually met Nick in person?
That is correct.
What type of relationship did you have during that period of time?
There's obviously some stress around the date of October when allegedly she had met Nick. Between then and her meeting him online and her actually meeting him physically, her blink rate goes up, she adjusts her shirt, she's adapting. Just a lot of indications of stress there.
Online relationship.
And by online, what do you mean?
Strictly communicating through Facebook.
Any other ways other than Facebook?
Instant text messaging, emails.
All by way of computer and cell phones?
Yes, sir.
Did you send videos to each other?
Yes, sir.
Prior to
More indications of stress and anxiety appear around this particular part of her timeline of events, and that makes sense. Her emphasis on instant messages, social media, just placing importance on those things. That is honesty. I know a lot of people hate when I use the word honesty when it comes to Gypsy Rose. I don't mean this girl is honest. I know she's a pathological liar. I do say that with certainty. She's a pathological liar. That's known. She's admitted herself that she's a known liar. So this is all not me putting her her down, but also that's why she is. And I'm not saying that she is an honest person, but that there are bits and pieces of this that she will wrap in truth. So all these lies wrapped in the kernel of truth, and people will do this, specifically people with antisocial personality disorder may wrap all these lies around this kernel of truth so that they can make you feel crazy when they bring out this truth and make you feel and question everything else and feel as if maybe everything else was correct too, to confuse you further and also make it seem like the rest of their story is true. And I believe very much she does that. So there are hints of honesty, but it's always a tiny bit, and it's always around something usually not significant. So for example, in my previous video, whether she had 20 surgeries or not was not important. I wasn't saying that she was honest about that, but that maybe what she was saying had taken place some other point. And had she had evidence of that, she could have said, well, look, this is honest, so everything else I've said is also honest. So not that she's an honest person, but that there are kernels of truth when it comes to these kinds of people being toxic people with personality disorders that typically do the sort of thing that would make someone feel crazy. That's, I believe, a form of gaslighting.
March of 15, when you indicated you met Mr. Godejohn for the first time in person, had your mother met him?
No, sir.
Did she know he existed?
No, sir.
Why is it she didn't know?
Because it was a secret relationship and my mother would never allow me to have a boyfriend.
Why not?
Because she controlled every aspect of my life.
Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you were not allowed to date?
Her blink rate completely disappears in this. She's very focused. She looks down at one point to the left. That is emotional, recalling something. However, I don't believe she is being honest in this particular part. She's being a bit deceptive because the blink rate goes away. Her breathing becomes a little more labored. She seems a bit more anxious, and her breaking contact, going that way real quick and then back up to focus on to confirm. That was a confirmation glance. Okay, what did they think about that? Did they buy that? And that is what I believe is taking place there.
Yes.
How many times do you think?
I don't remember.
Did you and your mother ever have any discussions about whether you were ever going to be able to date?
Yes, sir.
Did you and Nick talk about that?
We may have.
What did your mother say about your ability to date going forward?
She said that it would never happen, that she would never allow it.
What about marriage? Did you and Nick ever talk about marriage?
Yes.
She's also keeping most of her answers very brief, except for when she talks about she controlled every aspect of my life, playing into this victimhood narrative, which I have discussed in many of my videos, but she keeps her answers pretty brief. And then her eyebrows furrow when she talks about Dee Dee's not allowing this relationship, and there's a bit of aggression, some tension in her lower jaw that I've noted even in my previous video that she seems to have around Dee Dee. And then small flashes of contempt, part of her face going up very, very briefly, and it's so subtle, it's hard to catch. So she does have a bit of contempt for Dee Dee. She's playing into victimhood narrative. You're not seeing sadness where you should see sadness. And she very much just seems to want people in the courtroom to believe that she was not allowed to do anything, which we know by now that is her narrative. That is what she continues to tell people, is that people in her life, Dee Dee, Nick, everybody around her, controlled her, abused her, did horrible things to her, and that is just what she continues to tell people.
Did you and your mother ever discuss whether or not you'd be able to get married someday?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She said that she wouldn't allow it.
In June of 2015, were you in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did Nick know you were in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Why were you in a wheelchair in June of 2015?
Because my mother forced me to be in one.
Do you know why you were forced to be in a wheelchair?
No, sir. She just forced me to be in one.
She has some eye blocking when she says that Dee Dee allegedly did not allow her to, or would not allow her to marry Nick. When they talked about marriage, allegedly Dee Dee would not allow this, but there's eye blocking. That's keeping something in or keeping something out, recalling something or blocking out something. And I do believe it is the latter in this case, based on what we know around this child, and that's what we're seeing here. Also, her blink rate then, again, disappears. It's almost not present in this entire thing, as she's very focused on, very interested in what's being asked of her. She keeps things brief. She continues to keep things brief, and you see her continue to be a bit terse.
And how long had you been in a wheelchair as of June of 2015?
Since probably I was about 8 years old.
Was there a time between when you first were put in a wheelchair in June of 2015 that you figured out that
I also want to note that her breathing is very odd, very labored, increasingly so in this particular bit when she's talking about this wheelchair. We, of course, know she does know why she was put in this wheelchair. Again, she continues this narrative that she has no idea, but especially in this trial, she's saying she has no idea, but there's indications of deception. The labored breathing, she looks down, but not down emotionally, as I would expect her to do in this kind of situation. It's down, straight down towards her nose, breaking eye contact with whoever is asking her these questions, and it veers from her baseline.
you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
When was that?
I always knew that I didn't need the wheelchair
And how did you know that?
because I could walk.
Did you and your mother obtain any kind of advantage by you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
What kind of advantage did you obtain?
Financial, attention, charity.
Financially mean money.
Yes, sir.
So there's a large head movement when it comes to financial attention, and then it's gone. Her blink rate has gone to normal, so she was just focused, and then now it's a normal blink rate. But her breathing continues to be a bit odd, a bit labored, especially at specific points when I believe she is being a bit deceptive.
Did you obtain money as a result of you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
How did that work out? How did that happen?
Judge, I'm going to object to the relevance of that. There's been no connection that the defendant knew any of this.
Well, I'm assuming, Ms. Perry, you're going to tie this up.
Well, right now. Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to him about why you were required to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Continues to be brief in her responses, and she goes from scanning the room while everyone's talking, looking at what is everyone thinking, doing, back to hyper-focused on whoever is asking her these questions and just focused. Her blink rate's gone. Her breathing is indicating she's a bit anxious here, but she continues to make her responses very brief, very short, no detail.
Overrule the objection.
Could you tell the jury why it is that you obtained money as a result of being in a wheelchair?
Because people felt sorry for me.
And they would do what?
And Judge, I'm just going to object to general relevance at this point.
I'll allow it for the time being. You may answer, ma'am.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Asked you why you're taking advantage for being in a wheelchair. You said people gave you money. And I think my next question is why did they give you money?
Because they felt sorry for me. They believed the lie. They believed the fraud.
Now, normally I would look at whether she has a single shoulder shrug if everything's symmetrical, but it's very difficult to tell when half of her face is covered with her hair and half of her shoulder, half of her body is covered by the head of whoever is sitting in front of her. So that's a bit difficult to tell whether she was being completely deceptive in that part or if that was part of a cluster of behaviors. I do believe that she lies frequently, and her giving short answers doesn't necessarily help us determine whether or not she's being deceptive, and that's, I believe, is the point of her continuing to be short. But when she gives less brief answers here and there were financial attention, charitable benefits to being in a wheelchair, people felt sorry for me. We're seeing glimpses here and there of what is her baseline versus when she's veering away from that, when she's feeling anxious, and when she might be deceptive.
When did you tell Nick about the wheelchair? That you being in a wheelchair?
I think maybe a month or so after we met.
When did you tell Nick that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
A year into our relationship.
I completely believe she was being deceptive there. She says, I believe about a month into our relationship, you don't see her do the data collecting, but then you see the data collecting. And that is very conflicting and a bit deceptive, can be a bit deceptive because she gives a response without really thinking about, was it this time? But then seconds later, she does data collect. And so you're seeing this conflict in when she might be more honest.
So if your relationship began in October of 2012, it would have been sometime in 2013 that you first told him that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair.
That is correct.
Were you ill during this period of time?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell Nick that you were ill or that you had illnesses?
I told him that I had illnesses. Yes, sir.
Did you ever tell him that you really weren't ill?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell him you really weren't ill?
The same time that I told him that I didn't need to be in the wheelchair.
So now you see her go into a little bit more detail, and it's interesting. I felt how she responded to that particular question, whereas she normally says yes or no. She then says, I told him I had illnesses, which I believe is truthful. And that's her elaboration there indicates that she is being truthful. And again, I don't mean she's an honest person. I mean, this particular bit is honest. She did tell him that. Well, we know that she did have illnesses, but again, the way she responds manipulates how that is viewed, how that part of things is viewed. Because she could say, I told him that. She can make it seem as if I didn't have illnesses, but I did tell him that I had illnesses. That can be more believable than had she actually stated yes or no. So she's adding context to this particular bit of the timeline to really manipulate the narrative here, to really manipulate how things are viewed.
What illnesses did you believe you had?
Cancer, muscular dystrophy. I needed glasses. I needed hearing aids. Seizure disorder. And I can't remember what else.
And when did you figure out?
Sorry for pausing so soon after. There's an eyebrow flash around cancer and the other illnesses that she lists, so she's bringing importance to that. There's indications of a bit of nervousness there, but not enough to really tell. She does bring importance to those illnesses, but she does not do the emotional recalling until she starts talking about, I needed hearing aids. She's thinking in the past, I needed hearing aids. I did need glasses. So you're saying, again, the deception, the potential deception, and then potentially what is honest, because we do know she needed some of these things, but we also know that she may not have had all of the illnesses that she lists.
You weren't actually sick?
I started to piece things together when I was about 19 years old. Then I didn't understand the full extent of how healthy I was until after I got arrested.
So even at the time, even as of June of 2015, you still believed you had some of the illnesses?
Yes, sir.
When we first started this video, you saw her sit still, listen intently, and answer the question, no blink rate. But here, you see her blink rate increase, and her head starts to move. So you're seeing her veer from that baseline.
Did you ever run away?
Yes, sir.
When did you, and by run away I mean from your mother,
Yes, sir.
when did you run away?
In the spring of 2011.
Did you tell Nick about that?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell Nick about that?
I don't remember the exact time.
Was it before?
Notice her tone gets lighter and slower around this part of the timeline of things. She says, yes, sir, and looks down again, but it's not this emotional recall. It's not this data collecting. It's just looking straight down, breaking eye contact when she says, yes, sir, and she does not want to confidently answer the question. And again, this is going away from yes, no, to yes, sir, the spring of 2011. Not in 2011. This is not a natural recollection of events.
Your mother's murder?
Yes.
Did you ever consider running away after that? After you ran away in 2011?
Yes, but I knew that it would end badly.
What happened when you ran? Tell us about running away in 2011.
It was in the middle of the night, and I packed a small bag of stuff, and my mother was asleep, so I left the house, and I met up with one of my friends.
And where did you go?
To first at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, and then to his house.
So now you see her, again, she's adding a little more detail. There's emphasis with that eyebrow flash around she was asleep, and based on what we know, I found that interesting because she had told Nick that Dee Dee would be asleep when Nick came over to do what she was going to do. So perhaps what she's actually explaining to this man is actually the night of the crime. So her adding in that Dee Dee was asleep and emphasizing the importance of that was actually possibly part of the night of the actual crime. When Dee Dee was asleep, when she texted Nick saying that Dee Dee would be asleep, as opposed to when she actually ran away. And again, this goes back to the kernels of truth. She's wrapping a bunch of lies around a kernel of truth. She allegedly ran away in the spring of 2011, and then she throws in there, Dee Dee was asleep.
And at some point, did your mom figure out where you were?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
4 hours later,
What happened when your mother figured out where you were?
she took me back home. She smashed my computer and my cell phone. She chained me to a bed for 2 weeks.
Did you ever tell Nick about all that?
Yes.
The only time you ran away?
And the blink rate completely goes away, completely disappears, and you see her continue to say yes, no. So she has gone back to keeping it brief, and you continue to see the vertical lines in her face, the negative tonality of things, and it does make sense. In the context of this, they are in a courtroom and is around a trial based on her mother being unalived. But I believe what we're seeing here is indications of deception, her being brief, not elaborating, not manipulating the narrative entirely here as she had prior to this, but she is very focused on the person asking questions. Her blink rate is completely gone.
Did you receive any other physical abuse as a result of running away other than what you already told the jury?
Yes.
What other abuse?
Hitting, punching, starvation.
Did you tell Nick everything that had happened between you and your mother during the course of your relationship with him?
We're not seeing indications of grief. We don't see emphasis, those eyebrow flashes around specific things we should be seeing it around, whereas we did see it earlier when she was talking about the specific illnesses that she allegedly had. Now, we do know she has some illnesses, so I'm not saying she has no illnesses. I don't believe she had those illnesses, but we're also not seeing emphasis here where we should see emphasis. We're not seeing grief where we should see grief. And also she throws in Dee Dee smashed her laptop and phone. In the interrogation room, she told the interrogator she didn't have a phone. She wasn't allowed those things. That there's a lot that she's hiding here, and we do know that by now. But you could very much see it here. I'm going to end this here. If you would like a part 2, please let me know. If you've watched this far, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you.